Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What do federal prisoners, illegal immigrants, Japanese citizens, and people in graveyards that are under the ground have in common? They all received stimulus checks from the American Rescue Plan. That's what this resolution's about. And what did the American people get in exchange for a $2 trillion spending bill that was said to defeat COVID, but less than 9% of it actually went towards health care and putting shots in people's arms? I'll tell you what they got. They got sky-high prices, increased cost of living. Inflation has gone up 13.7% since passage of this $2 trillion boondoggle. And that makes it difficult for every American to put more food on their table, clothes on their backs, and gasoline in their cars. Help wanted signs are plastered in storefronts all across America because the so-called rescue plan spent $400 billion to pay workers to stay at home. And now the law has pushed the country into a recession. Adding an insult to all of that injury and the rampant waste and abuse of taxpayer dollars that has occurred and continues to occur under the American Rescue Plan, in the rush to pass the bill last year, common sense measures offered by Republicans to put safeguards in place to avoid such waste and abuse were rejected by the Democrats. Instead, congressional Democrats and President Biden spent $500 billion on state and local bailouts that left behind a massive trail of waste and abuse. At the Budget Committee for the last 65 weeks, we expose a different item of waste. $140 million for a luxury hotel in Florida, $7 million for horse racing in Arizona, $4 million to build beach bathrooms and a parking lot in South Carolina. The list goes on and on. But what we are here discussing today, and what my resolution seeks answers on, are the hundreds of millions in stimulus checks that the Biden administration sent to prisoners like the Boston Marathon bomber, foreigners like those Japanese citizens living in Japan who were shocked when checks from the U.S. Treasury started showing up at their homes, illegal immigrants, and even deceased individuals. To date, oversight efforts have uncovered that $783 million in stimulus checks were sent to over 500,000 federal prisoners. $1,400 checks were sent to thousands of Japanese citizens living in Japan. In fact, to this day, the U.S. Embassy in Japan still has a link on its website directing Japanese citizens on how to return those checks back to the IRS. Up to $4.38 billion in checks were sent to illegal immigrants, and $13 million in checks were sent to people without verifying whether they were still alive. This is not an accounting error. This is a failure of government, a failure of leadership. The American people deserve a full and honest review of where their money went and what attempts, if any, the Biden administration has made to recoup or at least account for the waste of taxpayer dollars. So far, the Biden administration has stonewalled and ignored oversight requests. As the ranking member of the Budget Committee, I have sent the Biden administration numerous letters on the American Rescue Plan alone. Neither Secretary Yellen or the rescue czar, Gene Sperling, have bothered to answer or appear before our committees. The resolution of inquiry requires the Treasury Department to provide documents, records, and correspondence directly to the House about the number of stimulus checks and dollar amounts from the American Rescue Plan that went to convicted criminals, foreign citizens, illegal immigrants, and the dead. It is clear that the Biden administration has no interest in pursuing answers to these basic questions. That is why this committee must do our job and force the White House to do theirs. I urge my colleagues to support this measure of accountability on behalf of the American taxpayer and report the resolution favorably. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman.